The forecast might say it's raining, but guess what? It is dry as a bone outside. That's right, folks. We're going to be talking about the market forecast, okay? This is going to be something that's going to be implemented during the off season and during the season, okay, and postseason as well. All right, we'll be talking about why do certain position markets reset so often, future position markets that'll rise, how much does the draft affect position markets, and what market values will remain stagnant, and all of this and more, okay, as well as my predictions for the free agency class and the draft class, okay? All of this and more. We're going to talk about all of this on the 14th episode, okay, of the Football Junkies podcast. I am your host, your GM, okay, your chief meteorologist, okay, your financial advisor who currently isn't with a group right now. Kale, let's get it. All right, folks. Well, unfortunately, yes, we do not have no bag alerts to talk about, but we do have a new segment, as I've just said before. Decided wanted to do something a little bit different, allow us to sort of analyze and sort of take a deep breath and sort of reflect on the bag alerts that have happened, just in this off season alone, and sort of pick apart, why are things happening the way that they are right now. So let's just take a deep dive right into it. So when we look at, when I decided to finally, do something like this in a market forecast, I was thinking about, I was like, how in the world do I want to, break this down so people can understand this? Well, I got to put in my factors and, what grounds of information do I use in order to make, my predictions and whatnot. So here goes. Okay. So when I look at, my market forecast, especially for the off season leading into the start of the new season, okay, I look at for, a few factors, right? The rising salary cap, teams valuing other, certain positions than others, impact, as well as the free agency class. Okay. And the future draft class as well. I forgot to leave that in my notes, but it's whatever. But the reason why I have those different things is because all of those things have a very, very pivotal piece in why certain teams, may overpay or, reset the market more often for certain positions compared to others, right? And so, when I take a look at everything, for one, next year's draft class is supposed to be a defensive draft class, okay? You're going to have, a pretty good edge class, okay? You're going to have a pretty good edge class. The running back class is pretty good as well. There's going to be some, some good corners that are going to be coming out this class too. I can't tell you who they are right now because I'm still looking at tape and whatnot. The quarterback class, however, is a little bit rocky. And the reason why I say that is because there isn't there isn't at least a group where it's like, okay, these guys are, bona fide top five, picks, or, they'll be taken in the first round somewhere in the middle or whatever. It's not like that, okay? The only quarterback that I can think of right now, well, the only two quarterbacks that I can think of that many teams may try to go after is Quinn Ewers from Texas and Carson Beck from Georgia. Those are the only two. And the only reason why I say that is because Carson Beck has, is probably the most experienced quarterback, in college football right now. And I know there's going to be people saying, well, what about Shador? What about Shador? The reason why I left Shador out, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, the reason why I did that is because personally, I feel like he has the potential to be a top five pick, but the problem is he going to have a better season than what he did previously? Because yes, I understand he didn't have, the best offensive line, so he had to do whatever he had to do. And I understand that, at first in the beginning part of the season it was pretty good, and then as the season went on, it just got worse and worse. But Shador really has to show that he is a better quarterback than everybody else, because if he doesn't, then scouts are just going to automatically disqualify him as a first round quarterback. And if we're being real here, his mechanics need to be worked on and refined more than just solely relying on his athleticism. And that is something that I feel like a lot of quarterbacks, coming out of college rely on too much. Okay, I understand, yes, you may be athletic, but the problem is that what happens is once that athleticism is gone, you still have those mechanics. And if your mechanics weren't even worked on in college, let alone when you first got into the league, then they're going to be basically gone by the time your athleticism runs out. And you need that as a quarterback. You do. In my mind personally, I feel like if your mechanics were worked on more than your athleticism, that will put you in a better tier compared to just oh, okay, well, I mean, I can run out the pocket, and I know if I do this, these two moves that it gets everybody and whatnot. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay. And so, it's one of those things where, within the past few drafts, we've had more defensive, draft classes than offensive draft classes. I think the only real offensive draft class that we've had was the one that just happened, a few months ago, where you had Caleb Williams and you had Roma Dunze and you had, J.J. McCarthy and you had this person, that person, Marvin Harrison Jr. You had all these offensive players that were coming out the draft at the same time. And so, you have that, and then, now you're going back into the cycle where it's going to be a defensive draft class, in next year. And, who is to say that, teams will be more open to possibly, trading up or being aggressive to try to get one of those quarterbacks? I don't, me personally. I just don't. I think the only person I probably would maybe be interested in is possibly Carson Beck. And even then, I still have to see how is he going to play this upcoming season. With the SEC going through the things that they went through with, Nick Saban retiring and whatnot. But, that's another story for another day. Now, moving on to the free agency class, okay? When we look at the free agency class for next year, to me personally, it's an older free agency class. You have more, players who are, a little bit up in age, and some of them are, they have less years ahead of them than behind them. They're possibly looking, to possibly, win at least a championship or at least get onto a team that, is projected to be a a playoff caliber team. And then you also have some who are looking for their first, big contract, and for instance, T. Higgins, right? T. Higgins is somewhat of the outlier when it comes to the free agency class, because he's not even close to being, 29 or even 30 years old, right? Compared to when you have Stephon Diggs, Khalil Mack, Dak Prescott, and, Buda Baker and company, those are older players. And who is to say, GMs will be willing to give them, a pretty significant deal, right? Some of them may try to nickel and dime them. Others may, try to play the long game. Others may just, just go through the draft and just get somebody compared to paying them. But, when you really look at it, right? And this is just my prediction, personally for the free agency class next year. I truly believe that GMs are not going to give the traditional 4 years. I feel like they're going to give them at least a 2 or 3 year deal with a high signing bonus with a low year average. That way, if anything crazy happens, guess what? They can move them off very quickly, compared to having to deal with this large dead cap that they have to find a way to spread through the next 2 or 3 years, or take it all at in 1 year and then be cool for the next few years, or whatever the case may be, right? And so the reason why I value the free agency class as well as the draft class is because oftentimes, if a team realizes that they cannot go and get a certain position or a certain player and whatnot, then they'll just make up for it and get in free agency compared to having to move 10 spots up to get that person, or give up 3 first round picks or 2 first round picks or a first round pick in this player, or whatever the case may be, right? And oftentimes, teams will address, a majority of their needs in the free agency, and then maybe leave one very big hole, leading up to the draft based off of, where they are in the draft, or just, their confidence that, that player may fall, or they will be able, to get them with little to no movement, right? And moving on to the salary cap, right? Now, you're probably wondering, why is the salary cap so important? I'm going to tell you why. Because when you look at how things went, post pandemic, the league is just starting to like really be in a much better place compared to what they were maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, right? So let's look at these numbers, okay? So when you look at 2021, right, their salary cap 182.5 million. When you look at 2022, 208.2 million. When you look at 2023, 224.8 million. When you look at 2024, this year, 255.4 million. That is $30 million per team from just this one year. And mind you, before the league put out their official number, there were a lot of people that were speculating if the number was going to be more or less, or maybe even in the middle. And, once the number did finally come out, it actually surprised a lot of people, because 30 million extra for a lot of teams, that is, that can be the difference between having to cut a player or do a restructure, or, being in a better place where they can go after 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 bigger name people in free agency, compared to just, the low level tier of free agents. No disrespect to them. And a lot of that has to do with, the bigger TV deals, as well as Taylor Swift. Now, you're probably wondering, are you a Taylor Swift man? No, I'm not. But we do have to recognize the influence that she brings, because guess what? She's bringing her own fan base here. So when she's bringing all of her fans over to the NFL, guess what that's going to do? That's going to rise up those revenues, all of them. Because guess what? Anytime the Chiefs do something, or Travis Kelce scores a touchdown, or gets a first down, or makes a big play, guess what? The camera's going to go straight to her, because that's the money maker right there. Okay, but that is another story for another day, unfortunately. But when we really look at it, right? Positions, there are certain positions that are going to be valued a little bit more than others, right? And you sort of see that with how the playoff teams are constructed. They have a premier tackle, whether that be both their left and right tackle, or just mainly either their left or their right tackle. They have a pretty good receiving core. Running back is not invested as much. The quarterback is probably signed to a longer term deal, and the defense is pretty good to elite, right? And so when we really look at things, teams value in a left tackle, your center, your quarterback, and a number one receiver, and possibly your tight end, depending on how things go. Now, when you move over to the defense, it's mainly your defensive tackles, your pass rushers, and your corners. Okay, middle linebackers and safeties, they don't get as much love as they should, even though they play just as much as else does, right? And so I say all that to say this, right? When we really look at these bag alerts that we've had lately, Trevor Lawrence 55 million, Jared Goff 53 million, Baker Mayfield 33 million, Justin Jefferson 35 million, Amon-Ra St. Brown 30 million, AJ Brown 32 million a year. Those markets, the quarterback market and the receiver market alone, is getting to a point where although yes, the receivers are better now than what they've ever been. However, the problem is the price tag that comes with them is starting to get a little bit excessive, and it's going to take a team to basically, put their foot down and basically say, hey, listen, we're not going to do this no more. Okay. Enough is enough, because this market is just growing, exponentially. It's getting out of control. And, we need things to cool down and to sort of regulate itself. Now, a lot of that has to do with, certain receivers and certain players as a whole getting overpaid than, what they should be getting paid. And the reason why I say that is because when you overpay for a player, guess what happens? It messes up the entire market for that particular position. Because now, guess what? Players that are going to be looking for future contracts, they're going to use that person that got overpaid and say, oh, yeah, you see my stats? Those stats are way better than what that person got overpaid for. And a lot of times it's true, right? And so what you have is, when you have someone like a Calvin Ridley, who he basically got overpaid with the Titans, the Christian Kirk, the one who came from Arizona and then went to Jacksonville, those two examples alone for the receiver market, they got overpaid and it messed up a lot of things. And, before I go any further, I am pro player. I'm definitely pro player, but at the same time, it comes a time and point where, just it's starting to get out of hand. It really is. Same thing with the quarterback market. Same thing with the defensive line market. Well, not the defensive line market, but the pass rusher market. Okay, those markets, they have just, exploded, and not really overnight, but they've definitely exploded within the last 5 to 10 years. Now, a lot of that has to do with, premier great players in those respective, positions. But at the same time, it's like, yo, this has to slow down just a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit, right? And, it hasn't. It's just going to continue to grow, grow, and grow. And it also doesn't help, especially for a quarterback, when you have Deshaun Watson basically getting a fully guaranteed deal. Like, it's just certain contracts and certain players that, it can mess up the entire market. And when it messes up the entire market, sometimes, it can cycle itself out and sort of regulate itself, and then other times it doesn't, and it messes up the market permanently. And then, GMs are sort of stuck in this bind where it's either you have to overpay for that particular player, or wish upon a star and possibly see if you can draft someone that can be as close or even better than them, right? And so, when we look at, when we look at, teams and their impact for free agents, we have to realize that, there are certain players, well, not even certain players, but certain free agents that, that if you get them and if you, bring them onto your team, guess what's going to happen? That's going to instantly change your team from being this team that's not really looked at and not really as, respected, to a team that's like, oh man, they could be a playoff caliber team. And we've seen that. We've seen that multiple times, right? We've seen it where, okay, for instance, when the Ravens traded for Roquan Smith, everyone was like, yo, that was a crazy trade. Yo, that puts them over the top. That puts them in a great place. Because why? Because of his impact. His impact alone can, literally change the mindset of a lot of teams, because now you have somebody who is, at the top of their game and who is regarded as, the best of the best, now on an already stacked team that's, they're already thinking about a Super Bowl. They're already thinking about, going here or going there or whatever the case may be. So, you have those different type of things. But moving forward, let's get into, my predictions for these rising markets and stagnant markets, okay? And mind you, this episode is not going to be pretty long. It's going to be pretty short, because I don't want to give you guys, these long drawn out episodes. I want to try to give you something, that's compact, that's not too long but not too short, but it's just right, because again, we are in this drought, and I'm still looking at prospects, and I'm still learning a few things, and it's just a whole lot of stuff going on in the background here at the Footballs Junkies podcast. But we always prioritize you guys first. Now, these are my predictions for the rising markets, okay? Cornerback, center, guard, tight end, running back. Now, you're probably wondering, why the running back market? The reason why I say that is because the running back market it's not going to, basically explode, but you are starting to see somewhat of a gradual rise. And you see it especially with Christian McCaffrey. Okay. Christian McCaffrey, in my mind, will be the reason why the running back market crashes over that $20 million mark. And if it's not him, then it'll probably be Alvin Kamara, because they are two of the best running backs in the game right now. And everybody realizes and knows that when they get on the field, they're going to change the game. Okay, their influence alone can be a deciding factor if the team gets a first down or if they get a touchdown. That's how big of an influence that they have. But when we look at the tight end market, tight ends are starting to become a little bit more valuable, simply because of the linebackers. The linebackers aren't as effective or as used as much as they were compared to when Ray Lewis was playing, right? Everybody knew that, if you was going up the Ravens and, Ray Lewis was playing, guess what? Don't throw it in the middle. Now, the rules are a little bit more softened, a little bit more tamped down. So linebackers really can't do as many things as they want to do. And then not to mention, there's not as many elite middle linebackers as they were maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. Now you mainly have Fred Warners of the world, the Roquan Smiths of the world. Is there anybody else I could think of? I mean, not Bobby Wagner, because Bobby Wagner's a little bit older now, but your Patrick Queens of the world. Okay, you have those type of middle linebackers now compared to back in the day. You had Ray Lewis, you had this person, you had that person, James Farrier, you had all these different types of of people, right? And tight ends are starting to be more athletic. They can double, for someone for being, in the slot. They can, move around. They can be, elite blockers and still catch the ball pretty well, and vice versa. So, you have those different type of things, and you're in a situation now where you have tight ends who are bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, and when we look at a lot of the elite teams, guess what they all have in common? They have an elite tight end. The 49ers, George Kittle. The Browns, David Njoku. The Ravens, Mark Andrews, right? The Lions, Sam Laporta. I was going to say the Eagles, but I'm not going to say the Eagles. But, I just feel like they're going to get their market is going to rise, but it's not going to be to the point where it's going to be like, oh, this person's making 25 million. Oh, this person making 35 million. Oh, this person is making 40 million. No. Now, I will say this, when you have people like Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth and company, who pretty soon they're coming up for new contracts, maybe there's a possibility that they may, possibly reset the market or get close to resetting the market. But to say that, the market's just going to, explode like how other markets have, no, I just don't see that. Now, moving on to offensive linemen, okay? Although offensive linemen do not get paid, well, not all, but although certain positions on the offensive line doesn't get paid as much, I do believe that the center and guard market is going to continue to rise because of the defensive line being valued a little bit more by teams. Because let's be real here, folks. Defensive linemen are getting bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic, okay? And the only way that you can counteract that is, investing into the offensive line. You just have to, unfortunately. Because if you don't, you are going to mess yourself up, okay? And I mean, you have to protect your quarterback. You have to invest some amount of money into your offensive line. Now, does it mean that you have to put all your money into the offensive line? No, but you do have to, pick and choose which parts of the offensive line that you want to value. I mean, because when we look at it, for center specifically, you have Creed Humphrey, you have Nick Harris, you have Ryan Kelly. Frank Ragnow, who pretty soon will be coming up for a new deal. Connor Williams and whatnot. There are still really good centers, and and teams value that. They value that more than just saying, "Oh no, we can just let this center go. We can let him hit free agency. It's no problem." When it's like, no, a lot of teams they do value their tight. I mean, they're not tight ends, but centers. They do. Now to say that they're going to be like, oh, we're going to pay them an exuberant amount of money, I don't really know. I don't know, but I can say this: people, when you look at Lloyd Cushenberry's deal, with when he hit free agency, this year, he got paid pretty well for a center, and I know for a fact that Creed Humphrey, once it's time for him to get paid, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid, okay? Even for Tyler Linderbaum with the Ravens. Those are just a few examples of, top end players who are still relatively young, but, play at a very elite level, who are going to be compensated pretty well. Now, to say that it's going to be something like, earth shadowing and whatnot, I can't tell you, but, only time will tell. Now, when it comes for the guard market, that's where I think it's really going to explode. Okay, because you have people like James Daniels, who is still, in the prime of his career and is still fairly young, who he's been playing a very, pretty well since being with the Steelers. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Steelers fan. I'm saying that because statistically, he only, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the exact stat with me. I probably should have, but he only allowed one sack. And for him to be, I think, only 26 or 27 years old, oh yeah, he's definitely due for another back alert. Okay, now for someone like a Zach Martin, who is sort of at the tail end of his career, he may be trying to go to a playoff caliber team just to experience that, because Cowboys fans, they never haven't been to the Super Bowl since since I don't know how when. Sorry, Cowboys fans, I love you guys though. Moving forward, people like Tevin Jenkins and Liam Eichenberg, guards are a little bit, are a little bit not questionable, but a little bit shaky, because sometimes, GMs will value, investing more into the center and the tackles, and then just getting some, average to above average guards just to, hold things together. Because let's be real here, folks. Do you really need like an elite offensive line where every single person is a first round pick and they're this and that statistically? No, but as long as your tackles are elite and your center, the guards, you can pick them out, shuffle them, pick them out, shuffle them, pick them out, shuffle them. Right now, moving on to the guard market. I mean, not guard market, cornerback market. Excuse me. Cornerback is a little bit weird itself as well, simply because for next year's free agency class for corners, the only corner that I can really think of that's going to be, really sought after a lot is possibly AJ Terrell. That's probably the only one. Now Carlton Davis, he depending on how he does this season, he may be due for like a pretty good deal. But to say like multiple teams are going to be after him, like how teams were after L'Jarius Sneed and company. No, I just don't see that personally. C.J. Henderson is sort of like in between of that as well. I just personally feel like the cornerback market is going to rise a little bit, but it's not really going to explode until Patrick Surtain and Sauce are due for their contract. The same thing for those two corners, because those two corners are literally the best corners in the league right now. Okay, you're talking about two corners who basically eliminate the side of the field that they are on. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm not gonna go any further, because if I do, I'm gonna go down an entire rabbit hole with corners. Okay, now let's look at these stagnant markets. Okay, and it's mainly two markets, safety and inside linebacker. And the reason why I say that is because safeties are not valued as much as how they were, back in the day. Back in the day, and I'm not trying to reveal my age, but you had people like the Ed Reeds, Bob Sanders, Troy Polamalu's of the world, right? Compared to now, the elites are probably what? Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, and company, where, okay, yes, they are making pretty good money, but to say that the safety market as a whole is going to be this robust market that's just going to, change overnight, no, I think it's going to remain pretty stagnant. There may be one or two people that may get, a pretty good deal, but to say that it's going to be a lot of turnover, no. And it sort of showed because, Antoine Winfield Jr. he resetted the market, if I'm not mistaken. And that's mainly because he plays such a pivotal role on the Buccaneers, and he is one of the best safeties that no one really isn't, talking about as much. He's really good. You're talking about a tackling machine, someone who can go and get the ball, and when you need him to get the job done, he is that person that does it. Okay. Now out of the people that I think could possibly get a pretty good payday, probably maybe Javon Holland or Julian Love, maybe Jeremy Chin, maybe Justin Reed. Buda Baker, I don't know, because I don't know how do teams view Buda Baker. I don't know if they value him to say, okay, we'll give you, 5 to 8 million a year, or whatever the case may be, because there are still some safeties in the market right now. You have your Jamal Adams, you have Eddie Jacksons of the world and whatnot. So, who knows, honestly. And, lately, within the last maybe, 3 to 5 years, the safety market has just really just been taking a beating because, GMs don't value them as far as wanting to re-sign them. Most of the times, they'll just go in the draft if they see a safety that's, pretty elite, and they'll just invest to that compared to, overpaying for them. Now, with the inside linebacker market, right? Just to name a few, you have Willie Gay Jr., Anthony Walker, and Devin Bush for next year. That's not really good. It's just not. It's just tough. It's a tough one. Okay. Out of all of those names that I just said, probably Willie Gay Jr. probably could have made some pretty good money, but the problem is, like I've said before, the inside linebacker market is not valued as much as all the other markets, even though they play a very major role, because they are the ones that sort of counteract with these, super athletic, tight ends and whatnot. But unfortunately, they do not, they don't really invest to them a whole lot, and it shows. It does, unfortunately. Now, do I think the market will rise just a little bit? I don't know. I don't know, because when you have people like Roquan Smith, who coming into the league, he was regarded as one of the best middle linebackers. He had to be compensated for that. He had to. Okay. Fred Warner, he's probably going to get another deal that's going to probably get as close or maybe surpass Roquan Smith. But to say that this person is going to get it, this person is going to get it, this person is going to get it, no. Because even with Patrick Queen's deal, Patrick Queen actually took less to go to the Steelers because, like he said, in his interview with Derek Bell, shout out to Derek Bell and everybody at Steelers now. He said that he took less, and he said there were multiple offers, better offers, with other teams, but he felt like he just wanted to be with the Steelers, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that because I'm a Steelers fan, but it just shows you that certain types of middle linebackers may get a better chance of maybe getting a pretty good payday compared to just the entire market as a whole. So I'm going to end all that to say this. Do I think that next year could be as crazy as it was this year with all the bag alerts? Not as much, but I think it will. There'll still be bag alerts, but to say it'll be as crazy as how it was, leading up to the draft and even during the draft and post draft, no, I just don't see that. I just don't. With it being a defensive class, I think a lot of teams are going to try to, create some money and possibly try to reload their defense with younger talent, better talent possibly, and just go from there. But I'm just going to end this episode right now. If you guys like what you are listening, please download the episode that allows us to let us know that you guys like what we are talking about. Please leave a star review, 5-star review if possible. I would deeply appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Spotify as well. You can follow us on TikTok. Content for TikTok is coming out soon. You can follow us on Instagram at football_junkies pod, YouTube football_junkies pod, and TikTok football_junkies pod. It is the same thing for all the social medias. Shout out to Spotify, shout out to Apple Podcast, shout out to RSS Feed for helping us out as well. Shout out to all the platforms that we are on. If there's any that I have forgotten, I'm sorry. You may have not come to mind right now. But as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. For riding with me with this journey. To say that I would have started a podcast, where I am right now, I would have called you a liar. But to be, 14 episodes in, it feels great. It really does feel amazing, and I appreciate, all of you guys for supporting me, throughout all of this. And it's only up from here. It's only up from here. So YouTube content will be coming out. Still got to get back in the lab to look at, a few prospects and whatnot. And yeah, if there's anything crazy that happens, best believe we'll either put out an episode or do something, just to let you guys know. We'll go over it quickly and then, put it out. But as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys loved and needed. And as always, peace and love. I'm out.